Good day, everyone. For today, our session will be about the roles of assessment. Last time, we talked about some basic concepts about assessment, particularly the functions, okay, and some definition of terms in relation to assessment. Now, today, we are going to discuss how this assessment affect or impact the different stakeholders in an education institution. So when we talk about stakeholders, we are referring to, of course, the learners, the teachers, the parents, okay, and other stakeholders such as the administrators, okay, the community, okay, the higher authorities, okay, the expert, the curriculum developers. Expected at the end of this chapter, student teachers are able to explain various roles of assessment to learners, teachers, parents, and other stakeholders. We are going to identify how valuable this assessment is to these people. And to achieve this learning outcome, we shall have the following session outline. First, we shall discuss about the assessment implementation cycle. Second, we shall discuss about the roles of assessment. And third, we're going to discuss about taxonomy of approaches to assessment. And these are the references I used for this session. So let's begin with the first subtopic, and that is assessment implementation cycle. Now you can see on your screen, okay, the implementation cycle of assessment. And this begins with defining or refining the goals and objectives of the activity or process to be improved with input from all stakeholders. So we need first to identify the objectives, okay, the goals, okay, that we are going to target for instruction. And of course, if we are going to assess, this will serve as our basis. And I repeat, we've mentioned that this part, okay, crafting the objective, crafting the goals, okay, for your learners, for the curriculum, depends on the diagnosis, the assessment that you made, okay, the needs assessment that you made prior to crafting these goals, which means to say that the definition, a refinement of these goals and objectives still emanates from assessment. After defining and refining our goals and objectives, we follow the second step, which is to design the materials needed to implement the activity and develop the tools to measure their effectiveness. So last time we mentioned that if we would like to measure the performance of our learners, okay, in relation to education, we are relating assessment, okay, to teaching, to instruction. If we would like to measure their performance, we need to use different assessment tools, and this could be paper pen test, it could be observation, and those other assessment tools that we mentioned last time. So these tools, okay, will serve as our instrument, okay, as our guide, okay, just like if you will use an assessment tool referring to rubric, okay, referring to rating scale, which both contain the criteria, which will serve as our guide in evaluating the performance of our learners. Okay, so that's number two, designing the materials needed to implement the activity and develop the tools to measure their effectiveness. Under this tab, it's very important also that you know the interest, okay, the ability of your learners. Like, of course, if they are more of collaboration, then the materials should support, okay, that interest of your learners if they learn best in that way. But it's also important, like what I'm always saying, to note that it's always a combination. Okay, we need to vary the way we assess our learners. So when we design, we consider, okay, the types of design we are using for our assessment. Okay, for example, if you're giving examination, and every time you give examination, it's always definition of terms from time to time, consistently all throughout the school year, of course. It's a bit exhausting, There's no element of surprise, and it's not challenging on the part of the learner. It's either they get bored, okay, with the way you assess them, because it's predictable, okay, or they fail the subject because of boredom. Okay, that's what we need to do. We need to remind ourselves every time we design the materials needed to implement the activity. Okay, make sure, of course, the availability of these materials, okay, is within your grasp. Number three, third step is to implement the activity or process and use assessment tools to collect data. Okay, like what we've mentioned, if you already designed the materials needed to implement the activity this time, okay, you are going to implement now the activity using, of course, those tools, okay, which you prepared to collect data. So if you have rubrics, if you have a rating scale, if you would like to use observation, okay, observation technique. If it's performance based, of course, it's a requirement for you to have your rubrics in which expectations, standards, okay, criteria are all contained. Okay, and of course, they are all communicated to your learners. So they would know how to perform because they know what is expected of them. So this is the implementation part, step three. Step four, this time after implementing the activity, of course, we need to analyze and evaluate the collected data. So in here, we make interpretation, we make meaning out of those scores. Okay, if it's an observation technique which you used, okay, you raise a question and they did not respond, that's already a feedback. So that's up to you to analyze and to evaluate. Again, it is not tantamount or equal to saying that they when they did not respond, it's automatically they do not know the answer. No. Okay? You need to consider some factors aside from the cognitive factors, like maybe in that day, okay, that learner might be sick, okay, or might the learner might be going through something. These are factors that are not stated explicitly, but we need to understand. Well, it's very important that we know our learners very well. Just like if in the previous weeks they were consistently responding, but during that day they were not able to respond, do not automatically assume that the child failed that activity. Okay, consider the other factors aside from what you know, aside from your standards. Okay, so analyze and evaluate the collected data. So in here, we need to be fair, of course. Okay, like if there will be adjustment on one student, then it should also consider providing those adjustment to the others. There should be no special treatment. Okay, but in terms of that's what we call equity. Okay, there are times that we provide a different type of assessment to a particular group compared to the other group. It's because you already know their ability. And if you know to yourself as a teacher that if you will give the same assessment technique, or if you will use the same assessment technique, if you will use the same assessment material to group B, you know to yourself that group A might get bored. So that indicates that knowing your learners, okay, is very important aspect of assessment, because whenever we assess, okay, whenever we provide this assessment task, aside from considering the ability of our learners, we use that ability, that their level of ability, to give challenge, okay, to challenge our learners also while taking the test. It's not good to give easy examination, easy assessment activities all throughout the school year. Again, it should be, whenever we provide activities, it should be one level higher, okay, to your learners. If their current status is within level 3, then you need to raise that to level 4. And the way to do that is to orient them with activities that is within level 4, so they move, okay, they improve. If you will provide activities that are within their capability, then it's just stagnant. They remain on where they are. Okay, fifth step is to identify gaps between desired and actual results and determine what changes are needed. So in this stage, the teacher is analyzing. Okay, if the course says that 95% of your learners passed, okay, the assessment activity with perfect score, then that's a good news already. Okay, it means your instruction is effective, okay, to the majority of your learners. Now what happens to the remaining 5%? This time we are going to determine what went wrong, okay, which aspects did they miss, which part of the content they still do not understand, and that's where you are going to provide intervention. You are not going to use the same technique as what you did teaching, because for this 5% of your class, that technique did not work. So this time, you're going to make some changes. Now, if the time will not permit, okay, of course, you have classes to attend to every day. And you cannot conduct remedial session while conducting the regular session in your class, unless the entire class needs the remedial session. So it's common to everyone. So you could provide in that case. But if you only have 5%, a small number who needs remediation, so there should be some special arrangement. Okay, so you provide more time for this one, like during their vacant period. Okay, you could give them some tutorials. Okay, one-on-one tutorials. So it's an additional effort on your part, but again, it's part of what we do as teachers. Or another technique is you could hone possible tutors within the class. Like their classmates would teach them how to do this, how to do that. Okay, that's also another technique which I could advise. In that way, you also hone your other learners to become resource people inside the classroom. Okay, it gives them a sense of responsibility and accountability, and it promotes again cooperation and collaboration among your learners. You could also, another suggestion or recommendation, you could also tap household partners. Okay, like if they have guardians who could assist them, who could guide them to understand the topic better, the content better. Okay, give some extended activity and just orient the household partner for you, okay, for the school and the home to have this what we call harmony when it comes to teaching the learner. Okay, the last one in the cycle is the documentation. So in here, we document results and use them to outline any needed changes. So this will pinpoint, okay? This will pinpoint if you have gaps on number 5, okay? If you have analyzed on number 5 that the actual results did not meet the expectation, the target competencies. For number 6, what you need to do is to identify whether what you did is actually it's already identified in number 5. Okay, now you need to strategize, okay, the needs, okay, for number 6, and this is what we call the needs assessment, which will serve as your basis when you define and refine and craft another goal, another objective in the implementation cycle for assessment. So this is under beyond a crossroads in 2006. This image is based on the image data cycle proposed by Beyond Crossroads in 2006. So again, this is the complete implementation cycle of assessment. Next, let's move to the roles of assessment. Roles